Good morning. Good morning. Well, nice to see everyone this morning, and I hope the sun is shining with you. It is shining here in Kent, which is nice. It's not been very sunny recently, has it? So I'm Becky Sims. I'm the CEO of the Human First Collective, and you are joining us for our brunch and learn on understand, predict, change, all around behavioural science. And wow, this has been a popular one. Honestly, we've had so many sign-ups. There's loads of you out there today, and there's loads also ready to watch back. So excited to have you with us. So we're joined today by some of the team from Reflect Digital and some of the team from Lab who make up the Human First Collective. So to just give you a bit of context, Reflect Digital is a performance marketing agency, and we are here to unleash your potential. So we specialize in leveraging human behavior and using that to optimize the customer experience and level up your digital marketing campaigns. And then we have Lab, which is a technology and innovation agency dedicated to creating game-changing digital experiences, working in that intersection between behavioural science, creative ideation, and digital solutions, giving something that you can't get elsewhere. So hopefully you've received your brunch boxes if you ordered one. If you were a bit late booking on, I'm sorry if you didn't get one, you'll have to be front of queue next time. But if you have, enjoy tucking in, or if you're saving them for the weekend, that's absolutely fine as well. Or we often hear the children have eaten it all. So if that's happened, I'm sorry, you'll have to be quicker next time. We want today to be interactive. We've got questions that you've already submitted, but if you want to ask more questions, you can pop those in the chat and Erin will magically drop them to my iPad, which is fantastic. So feel free to pop those questions in there. If you want the best experience, if you can set your window up to be muted standard view, that will mean you get to see who's talking and you can see the slides, etc. So as I said, we're talking behavioural science, and I'm joined by three of our fabulous team here. So I'm going to do a quick introduction to them. So first of all, we have Izzy. So Izzy's our behavioural science lead. She's got 7 years experience delivering behavioural science for clients across industries, with the aim being to level up what they're doing by understanding their audience better. So Izzy's going to be starting us off in a minute, taking us through some slides. So you're going to get to hear lots from Izzy very soon. Then we have Daryl Scott. Now, Daryl Scott is an expert advisor to us here at HFC. He has over 25 years experience in understanding the mind and over 30 years experience in working in agencies. So we can definitely pick his brains a lot today. And then finally, we have Lottie, our behavioural science and innovation director here. So she has 13 years experience in digital marketing, but also in research and how research can power what we do with digital marketing. So I'm going to hand over to Izzy to start us off, and then we'll be jumping backwards and forwards with some questions. So yeah, as I say, pop them in the chat if you have any. Over to you, Izzy.
Great. Thank you, Becky. Yeah, so to set the scene, just to give you an example of what we're going to talk about here today, this is the Juicero. I'm not sure if any of you have heard of this product. I definitely hadn't before I'd done research for this presentation. It's a 400-pound juicer. It was extremely popular when juicing was a trend in about 2020. They received a lot of funding, about 120 million in their first year, and their CEO was described as the next Steve Jobs. But the reason you've probably never heard of this product is because it also lost 120 million in funding in their first year. The reason that is simple, it's because Juicero's product does not consider their customers' needs and pain points. You can see the product on the right. The green packaging is where all the juice is, and customers quickly realized that once they bought the product, they could squeeze the juice out by hand, completely negating the need for the 400-pound machine that they'd spent their money on. So this is a very extreme example, but I think it really nicely illustrates a challenge that many businesses and marketers still face, which is that we need to understand who our customers are and why they're behaving in the way that they do, and so that we understand their needs and pain points when it comes to developing new products and new strategies. So to get down to basics, who our customers are, before they were customers, they are people, and people have to make hundreds and thousands of decisions every day, roughly about 30,000 a day, and 200 of these are about food alone. But not all decisions are weighted equally, so 95% of our decisions are habitual and unconscious. And the majority of these decisions, we rely on sort of mental shortcuts and other factors to make the majority of these decisions. So these are just some of the factors that influence decisions. So things like your personality, your emotions at the time, your previous experience, biases that you have, social factors. So have your friends and family done that type of thing before? And all of these sort of encompass what behavioral science is. So behavioral science is the study of human behavior and decision making to make the unconscious conscious. So what we like to do with behavioral science is unearth all of these insights about our customers through research and through surveys and interviews, but also taking into consideration these sort of unconscious factors that might be influencing their behavior. So for example, if you asked me in a market research situation why I bought my Fitbit, I would probably say it's because I want to track my steps and be healthy. But if you ask me in a social context, the truth is it's because it's connected to my Strava and I want everybody to see how quickly I can run 5K. So it's these sort of underlying social factors that actually influence the decisions that we make every day. These are just a couple of companies that use behavioral science, all the big names, Google, Amazon, and Netflix. You can see it's also across industries. So charity sectors like Save the Children and UNICEF have their own behavioral science teams, and so do the financial sector like NatWest and JP Morgan. So why wouldn't you be using behavioral science if the biggest names in the world are also using it? So to get straight onto our framework for using behavioral science in marketing is understand, predict, and change. So to break this down for you, the understand is about understanding your customers, truly getting to the depths of who they are, what they need, what their pain points are, what they're looking for out of a product and a strategy. Once we have this basis understanding of who our customers are, we can then predict their decisions. So map out their customer journey, map out touch points where we can reach them. With this basis of understanding, we can then change their behavior. So identify the correct touch point to make change and create interventions that will definitely work and have an impact. To go into this in a bit more detail, understand. So as I mentioned, people's decision making is influenced by many underlying factors. In the understand phase, we try to figure out what those are. So we try to understand the key decisions and the key behaviors that people are doing that are impacting our business success. These are just some of the methods that we might use. So things like stakeholder interviews, customer interviews. I really enjoy doing mixed methods research, so surveys and landscape analysis as well. And I'll pass on to you, Becky, to share some insights.
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's so interesting when it comes to research. We sometimes just assume we know our audience. And there was this great one where we were working with a client a few years ago, and they were in the B2B space. And I think people forget in B2B that we're humans. We go, oh no, we just color it blue and tell them the feature and benefit and we're done. But it doesn't work like that. So we were working with this client, and they sold software to accountancy practices, and they were just talking about features and benefits. But what we really started to understand was like the linchpin person on the other side was the practice manager. They were the one that needed to use this software. And it was all about them getting the next step in their career, because if they brought in the right software that really changed how the practice worked and made them more efficient, etc., suddenly they would got the attention of the board in a way that they never had done before. So suddenly, instead of talking about here's the feature, this is the benefit of the software, we were able to make it personal to that audience. And that was just a really good insight where you could so easily miss that if you weren't thinking about who the humans are and what that process looks like. So I've got some questions. So Daryl, what do you consider most important when it comes to understanding our customers?
Wow. Well, lots of things. Yeah, lots of
Yeah.
things. But from a behavioral science perspective, I think it's what Izzy said about we're trying to uncover the unconscious drivers. So by its very nature, that means it's often non-obvious and sometimes irrational. You know, I still haven't cancelled my gym membership, having not been there for 4 months. And you know, but why am I so reluctant? That's not a rational choice. Or so it's really digging for that kind of stuff and using a blend of data and a blend of research with really good curious hypothesis. So thinking, well, you know, applying your own empathy or your own awareness of what it is to be a human being, and linking that to behavioral science principles to think, well, could it be this? Could it be that? What to explore?
The curiosity piece is because that's where you also start to get quite creative with it, because we're not rational beings, are we? We're really not. We like to think we are. And Lottie, how does this work in practice? Are there any key considerations our viewers should bear in mind?
Absolutely. So I think your point on hypothesis is where to start. So asking the right question at the beginning. So often we'll work with some clients, and it's that understanding what is the question that you're trying to get the answer to. And therefore, when you then work through the analysis, like creating, say, if you're doing from a survey or focus group, the questions you're asking in those sessions, plus then the analysis, it actually is much easier to understand, because you know what it is you're trying to get to the bottom of. Otherwise, what tends to happen if you haven't asked the right question at the beginning, you're not asking the right questions during the process, therefore you don't get the right answer or the output that you need at the end. I think that's quite a common challenge. So rather than rushing through and thinking, oh, it's easy, we just ask some questions, that's the question we think we want to know. To your point around, we don't necessarily, it's not obvious. So if you ask the obvious questions, you might not get the answer of what you actually need to know. It's having much more time to sort of take that time to steadily process what you're going to ask, how you're going to ask it, why you're asking it, what format you're asking it in, to then help with the kind of the analysis and the output at the end as well.
Definitely.
And a bit of a rogue question here before we go back into the slides, which open to anyone to answer, but how do you get buy-in for that? Because that's not, if you've got stakeholders that are waiting for results, that want to see the impact on the bottom line, how do we get buy-in? Because it doesn't just happen overnight, does it?
No, it doesn't. Everyone wants to go first, but no, absolutely it doesn't. I think that's again one of the big challenges that we have. In fact, we have spoken to a client this week about exactly that, getting that buy-in. I think fundamentally it's trying to demonstrate to people who potentially don't have the sort of nitty-gritty understanding of behavioural science and the principles of what we're doing, that what kind of information they could get out, but the questions that you don't know the answer to try and sort of bring it to a level that is more it's understandable and relatable to what they're trying to achieve as well. So, and that's kind of a really key point to start with.
Just to add to that, one thing that I've found quite useful is reframing business challenges as behavioural challenges, because that's essentially what most of them are. Customer acquisition is your customer clicking checkout on a website, or responding to your Instagram ads, etc. So reframing the business challenge of, we need to understand our customers better so we can change their behavior, and that will impact our KPIs, generally helps to get a little bit more buy-in for this type of thing as well.
Definitely, because without the understand piece, what you're about to talk about next, we can't do, and we can't do it properly.
No.
We could maybe have a go, but it's not going to be founded in research, and therefore it's not going to be as likely to go on and have the impact we're hoping for. So over to you for the next stage, Izzy.
Great, thank you. So next stage is predict. So behavioural frameworks can really help to predict your customers' decisions and behaviours, and also identify opportunities to create change. This is an example of a framework that we use every day here at the Human First Collective. It's called the COM-B model. The benefit of this model is you can use it to map out customer behaviour, so to really understand who your customers are and what they're doing. It can be useful to look at why they're doing what they're doing, or why they're not, so why they're not buying my product. So COM-B stands for capability, opportunity, motivation equals behaviour. The idea is if you have all three on the left, that will equal behaviour. And so capability is things like, do I have the ability to perform the behaviour? So do I know what I need to do? Do I know the brand that I want to purchase from? Opportunity is things like, do I have the time and opportunity to buy, to do the behaviour? So do I know what website to go to? Have I seen this company before? And motivation is more of these sort of unconscious things that we referred to in the previous slide. So do I want to do this behavior? Do I know why it would be beneficial to me to buy this product? Or things like habits. So is it something that I've bought before in the past? To bring this to life for you a little bit, this is a worked example that we did for Shelter. They wanted to increase clothes donations to Shelter stores online and in-store. So we did this in a workshop style, and we broke it down and broke questions about Shelter into 3 categories. So in capability, it was things like, are our customers aware of Shelter? Do they know they can donate to Shelter both online and in store? Do they know how to do this, and do they know why they should do this, or why they would want to? In opportunity, it was things like, do people live near enough to a shop? Do they have access to the postal service? Have they seen this behaviour done by others? So it's more social opportunities, like have influencers donated, or have their friends or family donated clothes? And finally, in motivation, it's things like, do people want to donate? Do they sort of identify with being charitable and giving? Do they know the benefits of doing this? And also, is it something that they've done before? So by doing this sort of process at the beginning, it can be really great in the ideas stage to sort of answer all of these questions, yes, no, maybe, and come up with campaigns out of the back of this. So for shelter, for example, do people know how to donate clothes to shelter online? No. And have they seen influencers or celebrities do it before? No. But do they want to? Perhaps yes. So for quite a simple campaign idea might be to do like a Instagram or TikTok how-to video, asking influencers to film themselves doing the process of going, packaging up their clothes, getting the going onto the shelter website, getting the postal sticker, putting it on the package, going to the store, etc. But yeah, this is just like a very quick example of how we can use the COM-B model to map out ideas and map out the process and then generate ideas for your marketing strategies. I'm back over to you, Becky.
Brilliant. That's so good. And we've used that a lot with charities, haven't we, in the past?
Absolutely.
Because it's such a, but with any business, and I think the example you've shown there is great for the audience, because you could go away and just start to write down what do you think those questions are, and where have I got a yes, where have I got a no, and start to kind of model how you might be able to use it today. Like what ideas can you come up with today for that? So Lottie, I know we've already kind of talked around getting buy-in, but do you think when it comes down to an actual model and trying to move a team forward to going like, how do we come back to this and actually start to use this in our day to day?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how to get buy-in in that sense?
Definitely. I think with something like behavioural, because there's so many different sort of, models, theories, and it's quite a deep topic you can go into. I think finding something that's quite easily digestible and understandable, like the COM-B model, for example, is a really good place to start. Because if you're going over something that is too theoretical, or something that people can't relate to or can't sort of anchor to, then you're going to have challenges with them getting buy-in. Whereas if it's something that actually they can go through that process that we've done today, it's quite simple. You can frame it in a way where it's like, as Izzy's done with shelter, how does that relate to the sort of challenges that we're facing? That's something that people can go, oh, actually I can see how that applies to the problems that we're having. And therefore, the minute it starts to answer questions and challenges for them, they're going to instantly sort of have more affinity with that, versus something that's like, oh, that's very theoretical and I don't really understand how it relates to what I'm doing. So I think that's a really good place to start to kind of get that buy-in and understanding.
Yeah, make it simple, make it easy, make it repeatable. And so Daryl, do you have any examples of finding those behaviour trigger moments to predict customer behaviour?
Yeah, I think the behavioral economics emerged because traditional economics doesn't work, because we treat people as being too rational. And I think with COM-B, the motivation aspect is where you've got Izzy said about she wants to share her Strava app because she wants people to see how fast she can run 5K. I would do it so that I can show people I can run 5K, which I think would be surprising to some people. But there's all these nuances and motivation, and there's these very human factors. And I think how do you pan for that kind of gold? A lot of it is very unstructured sort of workshops and asking people questions and listening. Some of that can be done like online with social listening and other tools like that. But really, you're panning for those quirks that are really, really powerful and aren't what you would already kind of think, aren't what you would rationally expect to discover.
Yeah. Well, I've watched you in a workshop before, like someone says the thing and then you're like, but why? And that kind of keep digging. It's like, keep scratching the itch. How do we keep going? Because that's not the answer. Like the answer is about 6 layers deep in the onion. Like how do we get to that?
Or it's the informal answers.
Yeah.
So you ask them a question, they give you this really rational, sensible, sometimes when my scripted answer, you go, oh, that's really interesting. And they go, well, do you know what? Really, it's a bit like blah, blah. And it's that's the thing. It's that, the aside or the l'esprit d'escalier, the sort of side thought or the afterthought that sometimes is a nugget of gold.
Yeah.
I think often, because when you say about the motivation, it feels like that quite often is something that gets widely overlooked. When you speak to clients about, well, what is the motivation behind doing that? But I don't know that. And I think that because it's like, oh, of course we know why they want to do it. But actually, if you ask that question, quite often the answer is, oh, we don't actually know. Or it's a blanket, like you're saying.
Well, there's
blanket response.
Price and time and, really obvious economic factors. And it's not.
Well, or that we've all got the same ones. Actually, no, there's going to be very different motivations. And actually, that's what then that differentiation comes in from when you're going to use that from an activational perspective and trying to change that behaviour, which I think is just surprising how common that can be, that is overlooked.
Yeah. And once you start to understand those motivations, is that then how you lead your personas? I mean, I'm walking you into this because I
Yeah.
know we often would work this way. But yeah, because I suppose a lot of people might be sitting in the audience that have got their personas that's John, who's between 40 and 50 and earns this amount of money, but there's no nod towards why would John buy your product or not buy your product. But actually, John could also be 20-year-old Phoebe, and she might also buy the same product because they've got the same motivation. Maybe they want their friends to know they're great at the running. So yeah, is that...
Yeah, absolutely. And the slide that I showed earlier with the different factors of things that influence our decision making, things like personality and biases, risk appetite, is quite often the things that we use to lead our motivation. So for example, the risk adversity, some people are really adverse to risk and some people are very risk orientated. And that can be a major factor in terms of whether they're willing to spend the money on your product and also how they want the pricing to look on your website or in the marketing, much more so than the fact that they're 40 or 20, you know, that type of thing.
Exactly.
So yeah, I agree. The motivations are key.
Nice, nice. Right, let's go on to the third section of the model.
Nice, yes. So once we've done all of the mapping and we've predicted the behavior, we can then identify the best opportunity to actually change it. So we can change behavior by making changes to the environment in which people make decisions. So to give you a little example of this, if you imagine your local supermarket pre-2018, there was chocolate and sweets at the checkout that you could just grab and go on your way out. This was banned by the government when the sugar tax came in, and it was quite a small tweak to the environment. You could still go and buy your chocolates and sweets, but the impact was massive. So changing the choice at the checkout reduced sugar consumption by 20% at the time. So, and this is what a nudge is. A nudge is a small tweak to the environment that can change behavior without restricting choice. So we didn't take away the chocolate. You can still go and get chocolate, but you have to actively be in the headspace to choose to go and get the chocolate rather than just like breezing past it, picking it up on your way out. And we use nudges every day here at the Human First Collective. We have these lovely nudge cards. This is an example of them on the screen, which is like a set of playing cards, which each of them have a different behavioral principle on. They're really useful to remind you of the behavioral principles and spark creativity when we need them. So for example, this is the present bias, which is that people prioritize short-term rewards in the present over future long-term gains. So particular for customers with long sales times, this might be a really important one to think about how you can frame your product and your offering as something that might benefit people in the short term rather than in 10, 12 months' time. And this, you might remember this slide from earlier in the presentation. This is a nudge that I used on all of you, which is called social proof. So people tend to conform to the actions of others that they admire. They tend to copy them. So again, why wouldn't you use behavioral science when all of the biggest brands are using it? But to go back to Becky, I know we've got some challenges that we're going to look at to solve.
We've got some questions, and as I said earlier, you can pop your questions into the chat and we can get some more live questions in. So I don't forget at the end with the nudge cards, I think if you've got a brunch box, you might have got a mini pack, but we have much bigger packs. If you want to book a follow-up meeting with us to talk about any of your challenges, any ideas, we will put a pack in the post for you. So I think hopefully I can ask Erin to pop a little link in the chat so that you've got the form that you can fill in. And if you want to book a follow-up meeting, we will get you some nudge cards. So that's worth it alone because they're brilliant, aren't they?
Yeah,
they really spark creativity. So let's have a look. We've got some really interesting questions that have come in here. So first of all, we're going to start with Amir at Paper Cup. Amir, nice to see you. I hope you're well. So nurturing prospects and live deals through very long sales cycles, so average 12 to 24 months. Like, how do you do that when it's not going to be overnight, but you know there's a chance in the future, but also might not. But like, how do you nurture that? How can you use behavioral science to do that? Who wants to go? Let's go, Daryl.
So on one hand, that's horrible because it's, you know, you haven't got a tactic for an immediate, you know, you haven't got a behavioral brief. You want to move someone from A to B. How do we do that? How do we nudge it? So, you know, longer cycles is hard. On the other hand, it's more opportunity. It's more opportunity to create affinity to really influence during that consideration if it's a longer phase. So how would you do it? Set up a nurture campaign. Well, I think it's really about understanding, mapping out that journey of, awareness to consideration to conversion. and then empathizing with why is it a long time and what are the things that have to be overcome, and breaking it down and turning it into a campaign. Like in the old days, we would run campaigns that had multiple parts, you know, and you would be constantly taking someone on a journey from clueless to ready to rock.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you end up with multiple behavioural briefs rather than saying that's one brief for a 18-month period of time.
Yeah, and I guess what's interesting, because actually I know Amir and I know of Paper Cup. We've not spoken for a little while actually. Maybe you're in our 18 to 24 month cycle. Who knows? But it's an AI dubbing software. So this is also massive behaviour change. It's not just by our product, but there's an old way that they've been doing dubbing for the movie industry, TV industry, etc. And it's trying to get them to do something different and to trust AI, which is actually, which I suppose trust is a big thing in itself. So I don't know, Darryl, if there was anything else to add to that, or Lottie or Izzy, whoever wants to jump in.
Well, yeah, just to add to Darryl's point on the customer journey mapping, I think one thing like as mentioned before, we do often forget that we've got people behind the email journeys that we're developing with these long lead times. And also as marketers, we know what tools are available. So we know that there is segmentation and personalization and all of these techniques that we could be using. And we know on a human level, I personally get frustrated if I receive several emails that are the same, you know, from the same brand, and they've not thought that, you know, maybe I'm further down the sales cycle than other people that they're sending these emails out to. So we do want, once we are because we are going to map the customer journey, we want to make sure that we use all of the tools that are available to us to personalize people's experiences and sort of empathize with them as people and recognize where they are on their journey to purchasing with us.
Yeah, so I guess actually going back to Paper Cup, if Amir could get the data on who's like, I'm not sure I trust AI versus I love the sound of it, we don't have the budgets for it yet, or I'm ready, I'm doing it with somebody else, like they'd be very different messages, wouldn't they, along that journey of this one, we've got to convince you that AI is the future and that this will make sense in the future for you, etc., etc. So yeah, that understand piece and then putting it into action using the tools we've got.
I think on as well, the looking at the sort of fuller context of the customer journey map of, you know, what those people's touch points they're going to have, also like from a systems mapping perspective to look at what other influences are going on around them. So to your point around if it is something about AI adoption, what are the influencing factors that are contributing to the decision they might make to go down that path? So I think that's a huge part of it as well. So not only the like environment or financial implications or whatever that might be, but also the people that are around them as well. Because when you're having that sort of experience of trying to push them down that journey, they're not on their own in that process. It's like a pincer movement. Okay, well, we're speaking to this person, but how do we also speak to these other people, which maybe we haven't got the direct relationship with, but how do we equip that person with the information that they can go and then share that information with their wider group as well? If you don't have that mapped out, you don't know who it is who's also influencing that. So I think as well as the actual map of what touch points they have, but who else is you know involved in that as well, I think is super important.
I think at a tactical level as well, like you think about nudging and things, being a cheeky creative, I'd want to leapfrog the process altogether and just get them to experience. Because, you know, for all of us, whatever we do in our role, there's 101 products out there that we just haven't got time or are resistant to, haven't got the patience to explore or whatever else. So, you know, I'd go to nudging, like personalizing it, making it relevant, give them an experience of it, create some loss aversion, create social proof, but find some way to give them a direct experience of benefit and product and wow, rather than try to battle against a rational process of convincing.
Yeah, and drip feeding that over time, you're going to feel like this brand really knows me, they really care about me, they've given me the right content. When I'm ready to buy, that's where I'm going to buy from.
That's such an important one. I think that often gets overlooked because that emotional connection with it's like they understand me, they know the problems I'm having. So when at that point of need, I'm going to go there because that's where I've been going in the build up. If you haven't had any of that, then why would they come to you? Because you've got the product that they need, but they don't have that connection with you as a business.
And I guess in a world of measurement, it's really tough, isn't it? Because your boss is going, I need the sales. And you're like, but I've got these people I'm keeping warm. And like, I promise you, if you went and asked them that if they needed me, they'd use us. That's what they, but there's no way to prove that, is it? So it's really difficult. So I suppose, again, it's looking at how can we measure intent, how can we measure that they are turning up to our webinars, downloading our content, reading our blogs, etc., to go, well, it shows that they're interested, that we're hitting the mark with the content.
Exactly.
And it is just time that will take us to the right moment. So Caroline from Bupa, hi Caroline. She's asked a question. So where is best to request customer details within a funnel without scaring them into bouncing off the page? That's a really good question. I'm going to come to Lottie for this one first.
Yeah, definitely. One of the first points I'd make is around ensuring that when you're asking for that information, that there's clarity as to why, because so research has shown that people are quite happy to provide information if they understand why you need it and what benefit it has for them. If you're missing either of those 2 points, like when you've just asked them for their email address, but I don't really know why, like if you literally go on the site, first thing you're asking for is give me your details. I don't know anything about you. You've not generated any relationship with me. I don't know why you want that information. What are you going to give me in return? There's none of that's been built up. So I think that's the first point to consider before going any further with it is, what is that relationship between that data acquisition? How do we impart that information with them as to what the benefits are on a human level, what's in it for me? Because that's ultimately what everybody's thinking when they are going through that process. And then when you're going sort of map it again, sort of using that process of mapping out to understand what those different touch points are will help potentially for you to identify where that point of testing is around. Like, is that the point to do it at, or do we try it at a different stage? I think testing is such a crucial part of what we do to really understand, because we could make an assumption that actually this looks great on paper. We think this is where people are going to love that interaction. You do it and they're like, they hate it. And that's something you just can't predict. You have to be able to go through that testing process. You get that, the world over, all sorts of creative, another good example. Everyone loves this creative. It's amazing. It goes out and it completely falls flat because actually, for whatever reason, that hasn't resonated at that point. So doing that testing will give you that data to then be able to reassure, that's the point at which we should be looking to, ask for that information. We've given enough at that point.
That value exchange, isn't it? And I suppose you can also think about where in the journey you are, because early on you might go, well, if they've accepted cookies, we'll do a cookie and we'll show them a few more valuable ads across the journey. And then next time they come back, we'll go for the, I'd like your email address now. But we feel like we've built up a relationship rather than going in cold, going, give me your email address and what your data. And we'll send you 100 emails a day. Because that's the fear, isn't it? People, so actually, again, if you can be really open, we'd like your email address. We're going to send you one fabulous email a month, which we believe from what you've looked at here you're going to enjoy, kind of thing. And then it's like, oh, go on then, I want that, I want it twice a month if possible. So Izzy, any thoughts on this?
Just to add to what Lottie was saying, obviously there's the where in the journey should you put the email, but also and you've mentioned the why, but also the what. So like we need to first of all benchmark if people are bouncing off when they're at the point where your email is being requested. But what does that actually look like? It might be that a small tweak in the wording on the page or the location of it on the page is actually something that could make a really big impact. So we want to do a sort of test and learn approach to make these small tweaks and see actually maybe it is in the right place in the journey already, but the language is wrong, or as Lottie said, you might be asking for a little bit too much information. Do you actually need the email address, the location, and hundreds of other details from these people, or is the email address enough to suffice?
And I think you've hit the nail on the head on a really important point there. This doesn't have to be huge changes. This doesn't have to be, oh, wow, that's going to take 3 months to roll out and we need every dev person involved in it and every creative and whatnot. Sometimes it is just a tweak to the words. And I've seen it through paid ads, through things we've done on site, etc., where we've literally changed a sentence and the sentence means the same thing, but we framed it differently and the results are, this is why I get so excited about it. I love it. It's so, you suddenly feel really powerful in actually small things can make a massive difference. So love this. So we've got another question here from Nick at Simply Health. Hi, Nick. So getting more of our members to use the services they have on their plans and see the value they're getting. So that's, and I guess that could apply to lots of different types of businesses. Like you're paying some kind of subscription, you've got more than you're using. How do we get them more engaged? How do we get them feeling like they're getting the value? Because I guess the fear is, when are they going to cancel because they're not actually engaging enough? They're not turning up to the gym. Your example, not mine.
Yeah.
So Izzy, your thoughts on that?
I think subscription services are a challenging one. I think it's really important to think about what value is to the customer and how you're sort of presenting that information. So for me, I would probably look at what products are people using in the subscription already. Are there any sort of learnings that we can take from those? How the information's being presented on the page? What parts of the product are people engaging with? And do a bit of a comparison between that and the ones that aren't being engaged with and what's different. With that information, we could then, if there's gaps in the understanding, we could then do research with the customers of like, what does value look like and what are you looking for, to then inform the sort of products you develop. And so yeah, there's sort of two parts: making sure that the products are right for your customers and researching that, but also the framing of the products might just be something that needs tweaking to present them in a way that customers feel like they're getting value from them.
Yeah, make it digestible, make sure they know about it.
Yeah,
because I think sometimes, like if you've signed up to something, you don't realize, you don't remember everything in there. You might have just wanted this thing, and you don't know. So yeah, really interesting. Lottie, any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So another point, I think, again, going back to that motivational piece of understanding what the purpose, what the reasons are for them personally as to why they're kind of attending the gym. But also from a measurement perspective on the other side of it, so understanding what the motivations are, so then you know what it is that what you need to measure for on their behalf, if you like, and present back to them in a way that they see the value that they're getting. I mean, someone might say, oh, I never go, or I never do this. Actually, they do that. They just don't know that they do that because they've not really thought about it. They're not aware of it. But again, if you can then present that information to them in an app or whichever format that says, look, look what you're achieving from this experience. Look how great you've been. This is something that's really important to you, and we can show you how that dial is being moved. Therefore, again, it creates that, okay, yeah, no, actually, this is worth my time, it's worthwhile. I think like a really good, we talk about this a lot with like Vitality, for example, it's slightly different idea, but the concept of measuring and providing that value. So, you're more likely to continue to do exercise because you'll be able to see, like, actually, I've got a number that's associated with that. I can score points, and you're kind of also creating that kind of gamified view. It creates more of that engagement again, and actually, ultimately, you're getting the benefit of, in this instance, going to the gym, and the person's getting that value from it, but you're also then sort of creating a more engaging experience for them so that they see more value from it as well.
I'm a slave to my Vitality, and we
Yeah.
we have Vitality here. And for anyone that doesn't know, so Vitality Health, you get points for exercise and you get up to 40 points a week. But it's interesting, there's definitely some people in the team that probably haven't even checked, have no idea, maybe don't even have a watch type thing to be able to track their points. Whereas I literally, if I get to Sunday and I'm like, I haven't got my 40 points, it's like, right, what am I doing today to get my, and I'll have looked throughout the week, so I'll have planned my week around making sure I get my points. No, like, why? I don't I can't stop it. I can't not get my points. Even if I'm like on death's door, I'm well. I'm like, how am I going to get my points? Because I don't know. It's funny, isn't it?
One of those bank accounts where, you get the bank account, they send you a booklet every year with all those benefits, and it's like, wow, I can discount at restaurants and breakdown recovery, and that's lovely. And then from that day forward, all of those features and benefits are buried somewhere in the UX, and they're never surfaced. So how do you surface things? How do you make them engaging? How do you, present them in a timely way? How do you? Because it's all very well having a list of benefits, but if I've got to go digging, I'm just not going to. I'm not driven by metrics, or I wouldn't do the Vitality thing. Do I have to? So yeah, the question is, if there are these benefits that people aren't using, how many relevant, timely, playful ways can you surface them?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess what stories can you tell from the people that are using it? Because there must be some. So like finding those customers and talking to those customers and saying like, so why are you using this? What is it? And then like, how can we use that? Could we use that to create content with that customer as part of it as well, part of the storytelling? Because again, people like to see what others are doing and will copy other people's behavior and go, oh, okay, yeah, I should do that as well. So
just to add to that, you mentioned the gamification point, Lottie and Daryl. We've had that work in practice really well with our work with Stonegate. So we did a bit of they wanted more repeat engagement in their pubs. They own hundreds of pubs across the UK. So we did the sort of research and mapping and figured out what value was to the customer. And a lot of it was things like a free drink or like a little bit of food at the bar and things like that. So by gamifying that experience, we ended up creating a whole host, I think it was like 7,000 plays of the game that we managed, 700,000 plays of the game, sorry, within like a very short time period, which had people re-engaging at the pub and engaging in person with Stonegate the brand. So just sort of shows how gamification can be a method to get people to come back again and again with different types of products.
Definitely. And how it can straddle that online environment to a
Yes.
physical environment as well, because that's really important. Question here from Fran at Breaks. Hi Fran, I hope you're well. So understanding customers' real thoughts and feelings and intent in what is going to be a really challenging year for hospitality. So this one's coming to you, Daryl. So it's going to be a really challenging year. How do we actually really understand their thoughts and feelings and their intent?
Wow. So you can learn hundreds of nudges and hundreds of cognitive biases, but underneath there is a human condition that's one level simpler, which is we like to save time, or we like things to be convenient. We like to get extra. We will do anything to avoid chronic pain. People change their behavior because of firm legislation, because of reward and incentive personally, like it affects their biochemistry. Or to avoid negative consequences. So when you look at it in that kind of human condition, it makes sense of all the biases and nudges, and it also gets even easier to apply to a context or an experience. So if you look for what are people's distress, what changes their state, what changes their biochemistry, what gives them that lift or that positive feedback. In those kind of circumstances, and then from that, it makes it so much easier to pull from the nudge deck and work out, okay, how can we overcome difficulty? How can we reinforce something positive? I think with every bias there's a double side to the brief. One is, how do I use this bias to nudge and gently encourage the behavior I want, but also how do I understand that this bias is resident within our customers or clients or whatever, and how do I overcome it? How do I stop them falling into this bias to do behavior that isn't helpful to them?
Love that. And Fran at Breaks, you're a client of ours, and I know some of the team are coming down tomorrow, so I'll make sure some nudge cards find their way to you, Fran. Sorry, special treatment for clients. But because you can start having a look through the deck and how you could use that, because Breaks, I suppose it's in that B2B context within hospitality, and trying to really truly understand what those people are going through, knowing that they're under so much pressure because the industry isn't quite where they want it to be. Okay, cool. So we've got a question from Georgia here at Purpose Media. So Georgia has asked, growing knowledge on where behavioural science insights can be better used across ongoing activities. So Lottie, this is one for you.
Yeah, definitely. So from the way, I guess we're kind of a good example of where we can utilise it across a variety of different places. So behavioural science in its sort of purest form, I suppose, from a research perspective, we're kind of getting those insights have a huge value. It's then, actually we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we, about how that then sort of perpetuates itself into the other channels, let's say from a digital sphere or any marketing or anywhere within the business, to be honest with you. Because actually not only can it apply to what you're doing from a marketing perspective, but obviously there's lots of work out there around how you can use behavioural principles actually within the business to drive change in the business itself, which we'll go into now, but I think that's also a really interesting area. But certainly from the perspective of how you can then utilise that in creative, in ad copy, in targeting, I think what's really interesting, and one that I regularly bang on about, so apologies if you heard it before, but when brands are looking at channel choice, for example, I think social media is a really good one. Well, let's, we're going to go on this channel because everybody else is on that, or we've heard about it, we think we should be there. Actually, is that what people are using that you're actually trying to speak to? And does that make sense for your brand, actually? Because if you're suddenly appearing on a channel that actually doesn't really resonate with the brand image that you've got, is that the right decision to make? But then also, what messaging are you putting out on those different channels as well? So, that the old days was, it's fine, you can just sort of put a blanket message across everything. Actually, you need to tailor it to what the expectations are and how people are using that channel and sort of behaviours that they are exhibiting within those different channels, say between Meta and TikTok, for example, or Pinterest. Like, there are different reasons why different people will use those. And so, again, from a behavioural perspective, it's like understanding all of that complexity to really help you make those sort of really strategic decisions around where you're actually putting your media and what you're saying to your customers. So, it really can, if you sort of do it well, flow through in everything that you're doing as a business.
Yeah,
That's I believe that.
Love that. Do you want to add to that? Or?
No, I agree. Just if people are looking for resources and things to like quite easy ways to learn about behavioral science, I did my master's in it, but I still find LinkedIn actually to be a really helpful resource. There's a couple of people like Patrick Fagan who is very good at condensing down behavioral science insights into sort of one post. So you just get a couple of snippets here and there. Patrick Fagan and also Katie Milkman writes a book called How to Change, which is fantastic to use in your own life. But also the insights are still applicable because ultimately we are people at the end of the day, and the way we change our own behavior is the similar principles can be applied to change other people's behavior as well.
Definitely. And I do think the fact that it's called behavioral science does scare people. That word
I
science, you go, oh, you have to be super smart and
Yeah.
super brainy, which yes, there are lots of super smart and super brainy people. I'm surrounded by some of them today. But also some of it is quite simple when it gets broken back down, and you can go, do you know what, I actually now understand that. There's a lot of work that's gone into making that a thing, but now I understand it, I can use it. And I think your point, Lottie, as well, thinking about how you use it internally, like where we were talking about earlier, getting buy-in, trying to think of who you need to get the buy-in from and what motivates them and how you can frame this in the right way to help them come on board is super clever. Like you can use it everywhere. You can use it to get your husband to do the dishes.
Yeah, you can.
I've tried and it has worked. So I love that. Right, how are we doing for time? I'm gonna do one more question, then we're gonna do some feedback, but I'm gonna tease you with what the final best question is. And but there's one more here from lovely Ryan at Apogee. Hi Ryan, I hope you're well. So this is on the kind of analysis and tracking side of things. So with browser activity giving us less and less information, plus the rise of ad blockers, we've gone back to a lot of trend analysis versus detailed user journey analytics. What's the future of analysing user behaviour if users and browsers are blocking more and more insights for us to access? I'm going to come to you first, Lottie, on this one.
Yeah, I think on that basis, you have to go with what you have. So it is frustrating when you're then sort of seeing your numbers are dropping, say in your GA4 because you don't have that data anymore for whichever reason it is that those people have chosen not to be tracked, or to provide that data basically to you as a business. But I always firmly believe there's not much point worrying about what you can't control. Like that element you can't control at that point. You could look at ways to encourage people to not do that. But if it's a case of like ad blockers, like that's not something that you as a brand are going to be able to influence. If it's around data, getting them to see the value of why from a tracking perspective, whatever, there are elements you could potentially look at from a communication perspective. But ultimately, if you're looking at what data you've got and actually getting the most out of that, in terms of being able to use that data, because obviously then it is a subset of the overall data, obviously from a GA4 perspective, that sampling, etc., within those data sets in the first place, like the modelling of trying to get more of that information. So that's ways that you can try and extrapolate some of that data to fill the gaps essentially with what you've got. But ultimately, with the data you have from those sorts of platforms, enriched with the sort of research you can do from like surveys or interviews and all of that information as well, ultimately, from a perspective of that, of people seeing the ads, for those that are going to see those ads, creative is so important in a world where tracking is more of an issue. So making sure you've got that right messaging and that you're happy with that, and then you can assess that based on the data you have available to you, because that's really all you can do.
And I guess a nice opportunity for a little plug here. We've got the performance and tracking training program about to launch, which we have a couple of spaces left on.
Yeah.
And that's it goes across 12 weeks. There's 6 sessions, so spread out, where we're looking at all different areas of how to use GA4 through to like the data storytelling, etc. And really looking at how, instead of just being able to pull numbers out, how can I really understand through the data, and how can I tell stories through the data to help get buy-in, to help make decisions, etc. So that would be a really cool thing if people are interested in that. I will ask Erin, and she may have already even done it, to drop the link in to find out more about that. And we do have a special discount code, so Brunch 10 will get you 10% off if you're interested. But that literally starts in a couple of weeks, so you haven't got much time to sign up, but you should, because it was going to be good. So I'm going to tell you the final question. We're going to jump to feedback, and then hopefully you'll do that. And again, we're using behavioural science here, so we're going to tease you with this question. I'm also going to give my lovely guests 2 minutes to think about their answers, so they'll be the best answers of the day. And And hopefully you're going to give us the feedback, because we'd love to hear from you. These events only work because you turn up, and they're for you. So if there's something you like, we want to know. If there's things you didn't like, if there's things you want in future, then add it all into the feedback, because that helps us plan for the future and make sure that we can answer your questions and help you out. So the one question we're going to come back to, though, is from Heather at Hornby Hobbies. Hi, Heather. So Heather's asked, how do you turn one-time purchases in like a peak period? So in her world, this is in Hornby Hobbies. So Christmas is a massive peak for them. So selling their products to people of all ages. How do you take it from that one-time purchase in peak to being a repeat customer? So one to think about. So that's so, and I'm sure lots of you have those moments where you get those one-time purchase, and then how do you turn them into repeat? So hopefully that's going to resonate. Right now, we're going to pop the link in for you to give us some feedback. You're going to have 2 minutes to do it. Please give us your feedback, and we'll see you back here in 2. So back to that killer question. So to remind you, it was Heather at Hornby Hobbies, and she said, how can we turn one-time purchases over peak into repeat customers? Who wanted to go first?
Yeah, I can go
Lottie's
first.
gonna
Yeah,
dive in.
absolutely. I think it's sort of a similar challenge in a way to that point around kind of the subscription piece that we were speaking about earlier. So it's about sort of trying to introduce the additional points where that product makes sense to those customers. So going through that process of what is it they're looking for, what do they need, what's that journey throughout the year, what are the touch points that they could have that for which Hornby Hobbies is the answer to their need, their question, their challenge that they've got. And by mapping that out, you could then start to understand what those opportunities are to speak to those customers at those various points, introducing their product as the answer to the challenge that they're actually facing. I think looking at it from that perspective, otherwise if you're trying to sort of push something on somebody and they're like, I don't really understand why this is relevant now. It was relevant at Christmas, but Christmas is gone. Why is this relevant now? I think bringing up, sort of identifying those additional sort of points where, it makes sense and relevant to the customers is a good way to start.
And I guess on that, for Hornby and for other brands that are potentially gifting brands, the person that you've got the data for might not be the person.
Exactly.
So actually it's also thinking about how through the product, and actually this might be a physical thing that happens in the packaging, do you find a reason that that person comes and follows your social channels and gives you their email address because they want to hear more? Because then I find this, there'll be things that I buy for Paul, my husband, and then they keep saying, I'm not going to keep buying this. That was a birthday present or a Christmas present. Like, stop emailing me. Whereas actually what they're not understanding is that I'm a gifter, and they should know about those kind of key moments when I might buy gifts, as opposed to how do we get to the person that's the key influential person. So that's a really interesting one to consider.
Yeah, exactly. And just to touch on that, I would say the answer sort of is buried in the data that you have already about these customers. So if there's a particular product that you're wanting people to repeat buy, who are the people who have bought that product in the past? What are the other products that they're coming back to? And can we segment the customers in the sort of CRM or in the back end based on their like patterns of behavior, so that we can then target them with really like hyper relevant messaging at the right time, and sort of map those people onto our new customers and develop the same marketing strategies for them as well.
Definitely. Darryl, any thoughts?
Some good models in the world of publishing, in terms of moving people from one-time purchases to subscriptions and stuff. But for me, I think, creatively or playfully, it would be the Zeigarnik effect. It would be, how do you make something unfinished? How do you serialize it? How do you make it something that's added to over time? How do you like time releases of things? Because people love to collect, and they love to see a journey, and so that would be one. And then the other one would be whatever value they're buying for. Let's say it's like, I don't know, make it inspiring their kids' creativity. That's not a one-time gig. That's so how do you play into those values of like regularly nurturing? So whether it's you as a collector or someone who's kind of hooked into, you see this magazines where they issue one, you get this, but then they sort of,
you need the rest.
I mean, if you're into that sort of stuff, it's addictive.
Yeah.
So how can you break it down? How can you time release things? How can you serialize things? How can you like play into the Zeigarnik? We love unfinished stuff. It's delicious to our minds. And then the payoff of finishing it or getting to the end of it is huge.
Yeah, I love that. So with 3 minutes left, I was just going to say, like, if people from today listening to this could do one thing, That's all they can do. Like, there's one thing that they could start today. What, out of everything we've talked about, what would each of your one things be? I put them on the spot here,
Yeah,
guys.
you
I'm
did put
really
me on the
mean.
spot.
I'm so mean.
Just going back to the point that I made before about looking at your business challenges as behavioural challenges,
Yeah.
because it's a lot more digestible, and it helps you get in the mindset of thinking of your customers as people, and then what would you as a person want to be able to
Yeah.
do the behaviour that you want them to do.
Yeah, your little combi layout
Yeah.
was great as well. So yeah, Daryl.
I've always been amused when you sort of sell discovery and people say, okay, well, if I pay this, what am I going to discover? You think, well, we don't know yet.
Yeah.
But it really is, you know, if you want to do magical things that create huge uplifts or differentiate you from other people, you cannot do that without investing a little bit of your budget in research and discovery from a behavioural point of view. So my ask would be, how much extra budget or how much of your budget can you dedicate to asking questions that potentially could be game changers?
Yeah, yeah. Lottie?
I would go down the route of looking at your personas and do they actually give you insight into the motivations? Are they geared up in the right way to get what you need from a marketing perspective from
Love
them? That would be my suggestion.
Love it. 3 brilliant tips there. So we are basically at time. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to our amazing guests. They have been absolutely fabulous. If you hadn't noticed on screen, we do have their LinkedIn profiles if you want to go and follow and connect with them. We will send you a follow-up in the next 24 hours or so. We will send you a link to the recording. So if you want to watch it back for any tips, or if you want to share it with colleagues, you can do so. We will also answer your questions if we haven't answered them today. So give us a week or so on that, but we will get them into the behavioural team, the 3 fabulous people here, but also the wider team, and we will try and get you some answers back to your thoughts. As I said earlier, if you want some nudge cards, book a follow-up meeting and we can get you some nudge cards in the post, and we can start to chat around your challenge. And yeah, just stay tuned. We haven't got our next Brunch and Learn in the diary yet, but it is going to be coming up March, April time. So watch this space for an email telling you what that's about. And actually some of your feedback from today, if you've done it, might help us work out what we should do. If you haven't, that's another little nudge to fill that feedback form in. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much, guys. You were fabulous, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. We're Wednesday, aren't we? Thank you. See you soon.